welcome to your Learn Lab. I'm Seema, and if you're an IGNOU student, you're in the right place. Here we create videos on different IGNOU courses to help you ace your exams. So hit subscribe and join me on this learning journey. In today's video, we are going to address Unit 4 of Block 1 in Bachelor of Arts English IGNOU series. We're going to focus on the major characters of the play, the Sutradhar, Shakuntala, Duhsanta, and Madhavya, and we are also going to analyze the play through three major critical lenses, which is the gender, caste, and kingship. Here's what we will cover in this video. First, the character analysis of Sutradhar, Shakuntala, Duhsanta, and Madhavya. And then we will shift into three broader perspectives that will help us understand the social and cultural meanings of the play, which is gender, caste, and kingship. This combination of character study and critical analysis will give you a complete understanding of Unit 4. All right. But before we jump into the characters, we do need to understand the world of Sanskrit drama. It is essential because Kalidasa is writing within a very established classical tradition where characters are not just individual personalities but also types. So, in Sanskrit drama, the audience is trained to recognize roles very instantly. So, whenever a character enters the stage, the audience knows, oh, yes, that's the hero, or oh, that's the Vidusaka, or the jester, or that's the heroine's companion, right? It's kind of similar to watching a Bollywood movie where you instantly recognize the hero or the heroine, or the villain, the comic sidekick, the wise elder, and so on. In Shakuntala, there is Nayaka, which is the hero, the traditionally handsome, brave, and noble, protagonist. Then you have Nayaki, which is the heroine, who's beautiful and gentle and virtuous. We have our companions, then Vidusaka, the jester, usually a Brahmin, always comic, always close to the hero, and the king's ascetics, attendants, and so on. These are all stock characters, and this helps Kalidasa fulfill the main purpose of Sanskrit drama to evoke rasa, the emotional flavors, right? In this particular play, there are two major rasas, which is the Śṛṅgāra rasa, which is evoked through love, beauty, longing, separation, and Vīra, that is evoked through heroism and duty and kingly responsibilities. Now, it's important for us to understand this particular framework so that we understand why the characters behave the way they actually do. Let's begin with the Sutradhar. The word Sutradhar literally means the one who holds the thread. Just like someone stringing pearls onto a single thread, he is not a character inside the story. Instead, he works as the bridge between the audience and the play. In modern theatre terms, he is the director who steps onto the stage and introduces the performers to the viewers. IGNOU even tells us that Chandra Rajan translates him as the director. Now, he appears immediately after the benediction. And one of the most charming things about him is the moment where he gets so carried away by the actresses singing that he forgets what play they were supposed to perform. The actress then has to gently remind him, hey, we are performing the recognition of Shakuntala. Now, this does two things. It, one, shows the sophistication of the audience who are spellbound. It also breaks down the fourth wall. Kalidasa lets us see the theatricality of the drama. So the Sutradhar sets the tone, invites the audience to appreciate the art, and also subtly prepares us for a play that blends beauty, emotion, and moral reflection. Now, we come to Shakuntala next, the central female character and perhaps the most iconic heroine of classical Indian literature. IGNOU's text starts by situating her origins. One, she is the daughter of the Apsara Menaka and sage Vishwamitra. This automatically gives her a dual identity, which is one part celestial and the other part which is earthly. She was abandoned at birth and then adopted by Sage Kanva. And this hermitage upbringing becomes really important to establishing her character. Kalidasa actually shows her caring for plants, watering trees, calling creepers her friends, and generally moving through the forest like she belongs to it. She's really gentle, affectionate, innocent, and loved not just by humans but all the sentient beings of the forest. There's a beautiful moment which is noted in the text where she's leaving for the king's palace. The trees, the animals, and birds, all of them display extreme sorrow at her departure. This isn't just poetic in this case, but it also shows Shakuntala as she fits the classical ideal of the heroine, whose beauty and purity, everything is in harmony with nature. One of the most striking features of Kalidasa's Shakuntala is the way he describes her beauty. IGNOU emphasizes that Kalidasa does not only describe her in the traditional feminine terms like slender waist, smooth skin, or dark hair, but he layers her beauty with sensual imagery drawn directly from nature. We are able to see this especially through Dushyanta's eyes. He compares her to a flower whose petals have not yet opened, a lotus glowing even though duckweed surrounds it, and tender plant shoots or twinning stems. All of these descriptions make Shakuntala not just beautiful but really sensuous. It's shown as her youth is glowing but still innocent, the kind of beauty that evokes the Śṛṅgāra rasa. Kalidasa's imagery is really delicate, yet there's a tinge of unmistakable tinge of erotic in it. This establishes Shakuntala as a woman on the threshold of transformation, emotionally, romantic, as well as socially. This is one of the most exam important parts of the unit, and you know the text in IGNOU is very clear that Kalidasa changes the story significantly from Mahabharata version. In the Mahabharata version, you'd find Shakuntala is pretty strong, assertive, and confident. She comes to the court with her son, and when Dushyanta denies her, she argues really passionately. She quotes scriptures and laws with a lot of confidence. A heavenly voice appears and goes on to confirm the truth, and the king accepts her. But in the case of Kalidasa's, drama play, he does something that's really different. He makes Shakuntala arrive before childbirth, and he removes that heavenly voice. He makes her companions abandon her. He makes her quietly endure humiliation. And why do you think that is? Now, this is because Kalidasa is trying to create a very classical Sanskrit heroine, not an epic heroine. This kind of heroine is somebody who embodies soft suffering, devotion, and moral endurance. This actually allows Kalidasa to kind of elevate her into an ideal pativrata, the devoted and loyal wife. So her silence is not weakness, it is a culturally encoded virtue, right? The play really emphasizes that Shakuntala's greatness lies not in her assertion, but in her loyalty. So even when Dushyanta publicly humiliates her, she speaks only to assert the truth, not to fight or challenge him. She maintains her dignity, suffers with grace, and trusts in her own purity. Now, in Sanskrit dramatic tradition, this makes her the perfect Nayaki, the heroine whose identity is shaped through love, devotion, and endurance. Her journey ultimately leads her to her role as a mother of Bharata, the ancestor of the Bharata dynasty. Motherhood becomes a part of her glorification. So, Kalidasa's Shakuntala is not a fighter, she is an idealized embodiment of feminine virtue. Let's move on to the next person, which is Dushyanta, the hero or the Nayaka. Dushyanta is introduced as the ideal Kshatriya hero. He is handsome, brave, dutiful, and admired even by ascetics. The play calls him a man who evokes Veera Rasa, courage and heroism. But Kalidasa is very subtle. He does not present Dushyanta as flawless. And the play begins with him hunting in a sacred grove. Very symbolic act because the king is supposed to protect the weak, not frighten them. His pursuit of the deer foreshadows his pursuit of Shakuntala, driven first by desire rather than duty. He first checks her caste before falling in love. He chooses a Gandharva marriage, which is quick, without witness, something that later becomes the reason Shakuntala cannot prove her truth. So Kalidasa builds him as both heroic and morally little ambiguous. The rejection scene is one of the most emotionally charged moments in the play. Yes, the curse makes him forget Shakuntala, but the way he rejects her is entirely his own doing. So there are several points that are highlighted. One, he calls her a liar. He implies she is trying to pass off someone else's child. He compares women to cuckoos, creatures known for deceit. He expresses fear about lineage purity. And these are deeply patriarchal attitudes, and Kalidasa does not hide them. This makes Dushanta more human and realistic. Not a cardboard hero, but a man shaped by values and anxieties of his time. The next person we have is Madhavya the jester, one of the important characters for understanding tone and balance in the play. There's two key features of Madhavya in the play. One, he's frail and physically weak, a comic contrast to the king. He has complete freedom to speak truth through humor. He teases Dushyanta about his sudden infatuation. He questions King's choices. He provides an emotional anchor when the king is distressed. Madhavya's presence actually helps the audience see Dushyanta's humanity, and his jokes actually provide relief in a very otherwise emotionally intense narrative. We're now going to move on to the critical perspectives. Let's start with the gender. The gender analysis is pretty rich in the text. To start with, Apsaras like Menaka represent uncontrolled, independent sensual femininity. They disrupt sages, abandon children, and exist outside patriarchal control. Shakuntala, on the other hand, is intentionally shaped as the opposite of this type. She embodies discipline, softness, obedience, and loyalty. Kalidasa also redeems the Apsara femininity by showing Menaka as protective. She rescues Shakuntala, but still the play remains committed to producing a model of feminine virtue which is shaped by Vedic morality. This kind of shows us how gender ideals were polished and propagated through classic literature. If you look at Act 4, it seems like, it's about training the ideal wife, right? It kind of gives us what the Vedic society expected from women. Like the Kanva's instructions to Shakuntala are pretty clear. Serve your elders, be a friend to your co-wives, do not contradict your husband even when he is wrong, bear a son for lineage continuation. Gautami, the older ascetic woman, immediately approves. Her friends repeat this advice. Even when Dushyanta rejects her, the ascetics insist that she must stay with her husband. This shows us that the play and the society that it reflects sees a wife's role as a service oriented and duty bound. And it's not based on equality or mutual emotional support. It's a running preoccupation with women's behavior, to be very frank. Let's move on to the next critical perspective, which is the cast. And it's sort of the silent engine of the plot, if you call it. Cast may not be loudly spoken in the play, but it quietly shapes everything. Now, we do know that Dushyanta falls in love only after confirming that Shakuntala is a Kshatriya. That one detail decides the entire romantic plot, if you really think about it. The anxiety over producing a son is repeatedly stressed. The continuation of the Puru dynasty depends on birth within the caste rules. The fisherman episode also reveals everyday caste prejudice. The guards beat and insult him purely because he is a lower caste. The hypocrisy is exposed when the guards happily accept alcohol in exchange for easing their hostility. The play calls this peeling back the layers to expose caste assumption beneath the story. Let's talk about kingship now. The duty, the dharma, and the cosmic order. Dushyanta is not just a lover. He is actually a king with cosmic responsibilities. He protects sages, maintains law, and is even summoned by Indra to fight demons. So when he rejects Shakuntala, he is not acting only as a man, but as a king trying to maintain social order. The ring symbolizes royal memory and legitimacy. When it is lost, everything love, duty, identity everything collapses. When it is found, order is restored. The final union occurs not in the earthly palace but in a celestial hermitage, symbolizing divine approval and cosmic stability. So, To conclude, this unit pushes us to look beyond the love story and to see the larger ideological framework. Kalidasa reshapes the Shakuntala story to reflect ideals of femininity, caste purity, and kingly responsibility. But what it also does is invite us to question whether these values still influence modern society. Do the same moral expectations persist? In many ways, yes, which is why this text kind of still feels relevant. For the exam, focus on the points of epic versus Kalidasa's Shakuntala, Śṛṅgāra versus Vīra rasas, gender and pativrata ideal, caste anxieties, kingship and the ring, Madhavya's dramatic function, and so on. With this, you should be able to answer your IGNOU questions better and more meaningfully to get that marks you deserve. So, thank you for joining. All the best for your exams. Do make sure you add your comments to let me know how you found the video. If you did find the video helpful and would like to learn more, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Your Learn Lab. See you in the next one. Until then, happy learning.